Hey, welcome. I was with family and friends on Thanksgiving, and it was a number of days, so I had a lot of time to just sit and do some solid observation. And I wanted to tell a story that I think connects to a number of things that I observed. I think this is honestly what I was observing was typical. I don't think any of what I'm going to say is going to strike you as like, wow, how weird at that family. Like, no, I think this is really like what's going on in America. So I wanted to tell this story. There's a sort of a funny story if you want to look into this. It goes something like, hey, back in the 90s, a bunch of really powerful men, with cigars were sitting in a back room somewhere, and no doubt leather chairs. And a mahogany table, probably. And they made this decision like, hey, let the American economy run on one thing, getting people to buy more and more stuff. Well, that probably didn't happen, but honestly, what did happen is that maybe worse. So I'm going to read this to you. 1955, there was a retail analyst, Victor Lebow, Lebow, and he said, our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we seek our spiritual satisfaction in consumption. So that was published in a retail journal. So I mean, he was doing his job. Can't hold it against him. His job was to figure out retail. How do we get this, going really well for the retailers? And there's a historian, just to know that, just so you know, this isn't just one person. Elizabeth Cohen said the post-World War II period she described it as the rise of a consumer's republic, a society where being a good citizen became synonymous with being a good consumer. So if you if you just look at like famous things that presidents said, Eisenhower, so I think this was his parting speech, President Eisenhower, like what's that, late 50s. He warned about the military-industrial complex, war becoming a profit center, and he was like be careful about that. Kennedy in 61 was famous for saying something like, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Like a real direct call to, acting as an American citizen. And then 40 years later, so after 9/11, this is just 40 years, think about this. George W. Bush was president at the time of 9/11. In his initial conversation with the American people said, get back to shopping, get back to business. Basically saying, get back to doing what you're supposed to do to keep the economy going. There was a real identity shift, but that wasn't, in other words, the fact, this is, so what I was seeing was, besides food being consumed and all of that, but there's a focus on what else. And this is not like, um, magic or unusual where people are selfish. This is what I looked this up. So 70% of the US economy is consumer spending. But it wasn't always that way. That's something to remember. This is new about 40 years. So when you look at, if you buy an old house, you look at the closets, they're tiny. I'm going to talk later this week. So I'm going to do a series on this because I've just decided I know this general trend. I want to look up some stats that I did last night when I got back. And honestly, they blew my mind. I was going to just shoot one simple little video, and I went like, okay, I think we need to do a little 5-day series here again, so I'm going to do that. So what we have is that, so the US advertising is 1 trillion a year globally. Ads, you're getting, if you're a typical American, you're getting exposed to from 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day. That's the exposure. One of the things that psychologists know is that narrative gets shifted, installed by mere exposure. So the fact that you're being exposed to ads that are saying spiritually and in all other ways you will be better if you consume. But see, isn't that interesting? That this basic idea, I just want to read this to you again. Our enormously productive economy depends upon demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we seek our spiritual satisfaction in consumption. So right there, that they know that the higher calling for a human being is not consumption, that it has to be tied to spiritual satisfaction. So you were born, a human being with a drive to more. Now that drive to more has been turned into consuming more, which is different than um, becoming more, becoming more prayerful, becoming more connected, becoming more like all of the things that are not very tangible, that tend to be the things that human beings most yearn for. And that has been diverted. The yearning has been diverted into consumption. So nobody, maybe I'll back up a little bit because I am going to give you some tips through the week about what to do about all this. But the first thing to do is to appreciate, number one, you did not come out of the womb saying, I would like to consume as much as possible. That was the thing that was really trained into you. And as people are going into this year where I don't remember what I'm going to look this up too, what percentage of consumer spending happens like in these 6 weeks, these holiday weeks? A lot. I was, as I said, I was just going to do one video and then I did research and I went like, I think I need another little 5-day series. So the number one thing for you to do today, just appreciate that the things that are most meaningful to you as a human being have not so much to do with consumption, has a lot more to do with connection, which takes effort, but it is free. You don't have to be a consumer to connect. And it's in your nature to want to connect. It's not actually in your nature to overconsume, which is why they have to spend 1 trillion a year getting you to believe that your spiritual identity is connected to consumption, that your spiritual life is. Your non-material life is connected to your material life. Not true. So you were born to be my theme for today. You were born a human being. A system trained you to become a consumer. You can untrain yourself. All right, I'm going to help with that. First thing is, think about you are more than a consumer. You are more than a consumer. All right, I'm going to be back with, I'm going to do one of these each morning. See you soon. Each morning this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't know exactly what I'm going to call this series yet, but it has something to do with you're more than a consumer. All right, have a good rest of your Monday. See you tomorrow.